Hi, welcome everyone. This is Talkback. It is December 9th, 2024, and we're very lucky to have someone who is an important community member. You know, in southeastern Connecticut, we have a great diversity of people, both religions, ethnicities, nationalities, cultural groups, and the Jewish community in southeastern Connecticut is very lucky to have the Jewish Federation of Eastern Connecticut that coordinates so many of the organizations and activities. And I'm happy to introduce Marcia Reinhardt, who is the Assistant Director of the Jewish Federation of Eastern Connecticut, more commonly known as JFEC or JFEC,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Hi, Marcia. Good to have you.
Hi, Sheila. Thank you for being here, for
Okay.
inviting me to be here.
So let's just talk about we're here to talk about specifically a program called the Emissaries Program, which we're going to get to. But let's just talk in general about what is the JFEC? What does it stand for? How was it established? How is it connected with the outside world?
So the Jewish Federation of Eastern Connecticut started, I believe, back in the 80s, and it covers all of Eastern Connecticut. It used to be just southeastern Connecticut, and then we expanded to Eastern Connecticut, and we cover the whole area with programs for Jewish people as well as for the general community. It's activities for seniors, for youth, for just about anyone and everyone from 0 to 100 in our community. That's our goal. We provide services and programs.
So there are a series of other synagogues and other Jewish organizations. Do they all operate kind of under the umbrella of the Federation?
So everyone is an independent,
right?
But I like to refer to the Federation as the umbrella, or
Okay.
the umbrella of the Jewish community. We kind of try to bring everyone together, because we're not a religious organization. We are the Jewish Federation of Eastern Connecticut that does everything from Jewish things to not Jewish things. So we really do. It's for everyone in the community. There's no separation. I mean, sometimes things are just for the Jewish community. Sometimes things are for the Jewish community as well as the
So
general
there are
community.
many programs. I know
Many
that there used to be
programs.
a food bank type of program.
We did.
I know. Talk about the social services that are there. Some of the people often don't realize that many elderly Jews in the community need a lot of help, physical, emotional.
Yeah, and we have a program called the Friendly Visitors Program, and we go to facilities and also to some people who are homebound, and we bring them packages, bags for the high holidays or any holidays, as well as going into facilities. For example, the young emissaries and I today will be going to a facility where they will speak and talk about Hanukkah in Israel, Hanukkah here, how is it different, how is it the same, and that will be for the whole, anyone at that facility can attend. It's not just for Jewish people, because their job is to talk to everyone.
So talk a bit about the structure. You are the assistant director. So what are your duties? What kinds of activities are you in charge of or that you manage?
So I'm responsible for the Young Emissary Program, which we'll talk about. I'm also responsible for the youth in our community. I'm the youth director, so I have a junior youth group which covers the middle school, and a high school group. It's a it's BBYO.
BBYO stands for?
Well, it used to stand for B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, but that piece of it sort of, I don't quite understand what happened, but they just use the letters. Let's just say that, they just use the letters. But it is a teen organization, and it's a wonderful way for the teens of the Jewish community to get together, and we have affiliation with the region, so that they not just get together for our Eastern Connecticut kids, but there are lots of opportunities for them to get together with people all over the region.
So the population, the Jewish population in Eastern Connecticut is not a large one, so that I know from a committee that I'm working on that the student population in the area, high schools, has very few Jews in general.
Correct.
Right.
That is correct.
And so these programs that the Federation is doing are trying to help the Jewish kids keep their identities alive.
And help them have relationships with the other Jewish kids in the area. Because, for example, you can be a Jewish student at a school and be one of 2 in your school. But then there could be 5 at another school or 3 at another school. So the idea is to bring them all together. And it works.
Right. And the Federation is interested in supporting all varieties of Jewish life, from the Reform to the Orthodox. Is that right? It doesn't take a specific position on what methods or forms of Judaism practice are the ones to do.
That's correct.
All right. And so how about the other important piece, though, I think, of the mission statement of the Federation? Also, I just wanted to go through this. It's a national organization as well. You are part of the Connecticut
Jewish Federations
piece.
of North America.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
We are one small federation among many.
Right.
And
So
they're all over.
you're part of a nationwide program.
Correct.
Okay. So,
But understand there's no funding from that. That's not we come under Jewish Federations of North America, but it's not like we're funded by them.
right. Oh, the other thing that you have is a newspaper that used to publish bi-weekly or every other week.
Right,
and now,
bi-weekly, that's correct.
Now it's just publishing monthly.
Monthly.
But that kind of keeps the community together and puts all the news.
And people really like the paper.
Yes.
And the other thing I didn't mention is we also have a weekly high school program that meets for the high school kids. The same kids that are involved in BBYO can also be involved in Jewish Community High School. And it's interesting because some kids choose to be involved in the high school piece on that one night a week. Some choose to be involved in the more social BBYO piece, and some try to do both.
Okay.
So it's just very different.
So the Federation tries to support and encourage Jewish life in the community, and have good relations with the non-Jewish community because they're intergroup
We're
programs.
interspersed, absolutely.
Right. But then the mission of the Federation also includes a dedication to Israel. What does that say? I know it doesn't get political, right? But
No.
What's the approach of the Federation to Israel in general?
Well, we try to support Israel in whatever way we can, but the big thing that we do is we bring the young emissaries. And the young emissaries become, for our community and for everyone they meet, they become the face of Israel to everyone they meet, as well as being a living bridge between our communities and our countries. That's their role.
So we're going to get into this, but almost every year in the past, that you've been the director of the Emissaries Project. I've I had the pleasure of having them come here to the studio and talk to us about their lives in Israel and what they're doing here, and their opinions, their insights, and so forth, which has been wonderful. We can't do that this year. We're going to get into that. But let's talk about the Emissaries Program. How did it get started, and what was the purpose of it originally?
So it started back in, I want to say, 99, but I think it started a little before that. I moved here in 99, so I'm going to tell you what I'm aware of. Is we had a young woman who was a little older. Our young emissaries are 18. They're right out of high school. She was older. She was here for, I think, the year. We now call them post-army shliach or shlicha. And they come and they live in the community, and they do very similar work to what the emissaries do. She was here for a year, and then in 99, the program, the Young Emissary Program, was started as a pilot program in Westport, Connecticut, with 2 young emissaries, 18-year-olds from the region. We have a partnership region that this area of Eastern Connecticut is partnered with, and that is Afula Gilboa. Afula is the city, Gilboa is the region. They're in the north, not really, really far north, but they're in the northern part of Israel. And so the kids came from that region, and the idea was to connect our 2 communities using these young people to help us, as I said, being a living bridge, to bridge us together. And we've supported the Afula Gilboa region for a long time, and this was just another way to have that happen. So that started in 99, and it was very successful. In 2000, I'm not sure how many other federations, if any, came on board or if they just continued to test it in Westport, but I do know that our federation and many others in our southern New England region brought 2 emissaries. We started in 2001. as did a number of other Federation communities. And we have, since 2001, we've had anywhere from 12 to 16 young emissaries in the region until COVID hit.
So, in other words, we are on the southeast or the eastern Connecticut region, and then there are several other regions in the state
Southern
of
New
Connecticut.
England. No,
Southern
well,
New
yes. So Southern New England, this partnership and the consortium is made up of federations in Greenwich, Stamford,
Got it.
Fairfield, New Haven,
I got it. I see.
all, West Worcester, New Bedford.
And all the emissaries that are sent over come from the similar region in
So
Israel.
originally the program was set up that we would get emissaries from the region.
Yeah.
That was the plan, and for years that's what we got. And then as time went on, because the program continued for many years, we started to get kids from other areas of
Right.
Israel, which, as far as I was concerned, was a bonus, because then we got to get experiences and learn about other parts
About
of
other
Israel, and not just the Afula Gilboa region.
Yeah.
But we always had, usually one year, a couple of years we didn't, but most of the time we had at least one from our region.
Okay. So to talk about the requirements. These are people that go through some strenuous preparation and are chosen for their level of education, their ability to interact, their knowledge, they're trained. It's a long program they have to go through to eventually be chosen and come here. How does that work?
It's a very long process. It starts in, I believe, in their 11th grade year, and that's when they start applying into the program. And then they go through some rigorous testing. They go through psychological testing. They go through, I don't even know exactly, because it's all done in Israel. It's done with the Jewish Agency. But they have a lot of first testing to see if they're, what they have to go through rigorous question and answers. And then once there's a group that's chosen as being, you can be interviewed. This is the group that can be interviewed. We could have 2,000 emissaries that will be interviewed, and we'll end up with 250 in North America.
Wow.
So once they get through the first level, then they start having them interview with communities.
Wow.
And then when I did the interview last year, for example, I believe I interviewed seven kids, 7 teens. And the year before, I believe I interviewed 5. So because we try to keep within our region.
So it's a very intensive, long
very
process.
intensive, and it's very hard.
And they have to have
hard.
some facility with English, that obviously.
Yes.
But most Israeli kids do take English.
Most
don't
of
they?
them, well, they take it in schools, but they don't necessarily. The way they learn English in schools is the way we learn Spanish and
Right.
French in our schools. It's grammar. It's not necessarily conversational until you get further and further in.
Right.
So a lot of them have said that they learn how to speak English mostly from the media, from music, from TV shows, from movies.
Right. Right. So they really have to have, starting in 11th grade, that commitment to, maybe it's just they want to go to the States, they want to see America.
Well, we hope that's not the reason.
Well, but no, that could be part of the reason.
Could be part of
That's
it.
okay.
Absolutely, it could be
But
part of it.
they really have to be kids that are dedicated and committed, because they're also delaying their entry into the service, because in Israel, national service happens after high school. You must go in some form of service.
Correct.
And
That's correct.
they're deferring that so that when they finish their year in America, they go back, they have to go do their service at that
It's
point.
their gap year.
Yeah, they call that.
And our kids, like the 2 that we have this year, really, it's not just that it starts in 11th grade. That's when they start testing. But this is something they've wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah.
They've known about the program, so they've geared themselves towards trying to get into
And
that
then
program.
I know over the years you have kind of an alumni almost club.
Oh my God, yes.
You visit. Tell us about that. You keep in touch with.
I do. I keep in
and
touch
see
with
what's
as
going on
many
with
as
their
I can.
lives and what they're doing. Just talk a little bit about that.
So since we started in 2001, and we've continued except for the 2 years during COVID, so we stopped the program for 2 years, and then we brought it back in 2022-23 and had it last year in 23-24, and now continuing. So we've had it for 22 years. So for 22 years, we've had 2 young emissaries every year, which means we've had 44 kids. And I would say I'm in touch with 95% of them.
Wow.
It's really, and so I have a group chat with them on WhatsApp, so I can communicate with all of them. Some of them have opted out because it's a lot of communication. So then I reach out to them individually if I know it's something important that they should know about, or, I mean, we're just in touch.
Do they stay in touch with each other when you are not helping
No,
them
not so
coordinate?
much.
No,
It's
not so
interesting.
much.
Some of them know each other, but not a lot. They've met many times just because when I go to Israel, I'll try and get with as many as I can, and we'll gather, and so they've met. And there have been quite a few years now where people have met each other over and over
Yeah.
again, which is really nice.
Now, oftentimes, is it always a one boy and one girl? It doesn't have to be. But
Doesn't have to be.
But it usually seems to be
Yeah,
the last few
it's-
years. So have you found that when those teams, boy-girl teams, stay in touch in their lives afterwards?
Yes, most
They
of them,
do.
yes,
Those who
they do.
spent the time here stay in touch. So tell me what, 22 years, they've gone from being, what, 18, 19 years old to 30-something.
I
So
think the
what are
I
some
think
of
the
them-
ones who were 18 in 2001, 22 years ago, they're 40.
Yeah, wow. That's
crazy.
right, in their 40s.
It's crazy.
Some of them are in their 30s now, the oldest ones. So tell us, what are some of the things that they have been doing, of the professions they've gone into, some of the things they've done?
Oh, wow. Well, some of them are in computers, and some of them are in business, and I mean, it runs the gamut. It's just like here.
Yeah.
You know, the kids are going to go to school, and then they're going to come out, and what are they going to do? They're going
But
to be
they're
in
all
fields.
leading what you would say successful lives,
They are.
productive lives in
Yeah.
Israel,
Many of them are, yes.
and look back fondly on their experiences here.
Yeah, they've all said that this year was very pivotal for them, and that it's one of the best years of their lives.
Wow.
Many of them have said that, and that
Wow.
it stays with them. It helps them
And
through
you've
their
gone back
lives.
to Israel to visit with some of them.
Yes.
Did you have a conference with a bunch of them at
I
one
tried
point?
to,
You tried
but not so much a conference.
I don't mean a
I'll try to
you
have a
get
dinner.
together, yeah.
I try to have a dinner with whoever. You know, I'll put it out like on the WhatsApp chat
Right.
and say I'm here and we're going to have dinner and can you make it? And so and remember, it's gone from being people from Afula Gilboa from being all over the country.
Israel's a small country, but it's still
It's a
hard
small
to
country,
get people
but you
together.
still have to, you know, if you're living in the south and we're meeting in the
Right.
north, you're not
It's a few
necessarily going to
miles.
be able to come.
Yeah.
So, but I try to travel around the country as much as I can so that I can hit as many people as I can. I usually get to see, because I usually like to count it after the trip. So how many emissaries did I see? I usually try to get to see about 17 to 20 of the emissaries.
Wow.
Which is
now
pretty good.
another interesting question that I had: the emissaries that are here now or that are in service, whatever year they are, do they ever go back and ask prior emissaries for advice and counsel? Like, how did you do it when you were here?
yes.
They do that. They're in touch. They know who the
Yeah,
other
they
people
actually, like the kids who come now when they're in Israel, they'll reach out to the kids who just got home before they
were. Right.
when there's this little time frame when the two kids leave before the two kids come, and they meet in the summer and they sit and they talk.
So they'll be.
So they get a little bit of a window into what's coming. I mean, it's
Okay.
hard to prepare them, you know, even with all the training they get in Israel. When you are trying to train people for a program like this, it's very hard for them to really wrap their heads around it.
You mentioned how intensive the training is, but how is it? It's a whole year. Do they have like 9 to 5 classes they have to attend?
No.
Or how does it work?
They have periodic training. Like I just got a schedule. I didn't look at it that closely, but there are a number of times they're going to meet in February for a weekend. They're going to meet in March, I think, for a day. They'll meet again in I forget, in June they'll meet for a bit, and then in July they have a week seminar. And there's periodic. There's some trainings are on Zoom.
Right.
Some are in person. So it's ongoing pretty much from February.
So when
through
the
the summer.
community meets them, I'm interested to think about how many in our community don't know how serious and how intense, how important their training was and what they were given. They think they just may popped in, you know.
So the people who see them on a pretty regular basis, and even those who don't, that's one of the questions they ask. So
Yeah.
people get a good
They get an
insight that
idea.
it's not easy. This is a very it's an elite program. You know, there is another kind of gap year that's in Israel, which people can do, and that's also hard to get into. But it's not the same. This is the hardest program to get into.
Is it really? Yeah. So once they are chosen and come here, how how do you set up the year? You have to find housing for them. How does that work?
Oh, that happens before they get here. So I spend a good part of the summer talking to families and seeing about getting host families. And we used to have a plethora of families with children who would love to host and wanted to host, and it was in the earlier years, we would literally be fighting over it, who's going to have the emissaries. It's changed. We don't have as many people, as you know, in our community. We have less kids, as you mentioned. So it's harder to find host families that have children, that have an extra room. There's a whole piece that goes with that. So in the last couple of years, we've also started to engage empty nesters, which has really been quite wonderful. And the emissaries love it. I mean, they have had great experiences being with people who don't have kids at home. Oh. And one of the beauties is they're not, the parents aren't distracted
with other kids
trying to, I got to get my kid here, or I've got to, I've got little ones, whatever it is. And it's a blessing. It's great when it is with a family, but there's another aspect to being with people who don't have young kids or teenagers that they're running here, there, and everywhere.
Interesting.
So it works. It works in both dynamics.
Now, they each emissary has a separate house they live in, right? They're not living together in the same house.
No, it's a lot of, they spend a lot of time together, working together. They don't always work together, but they spend a lot of their time together.
And, I mean, just mundane things like insurance, transportation, you have to insure them.
That's all part of our expenses.
It's all part of your expenses.
Yes. The cars.
I mean,
we provide the cars, we provide the phones, we provide them with everything.
Right.
The only thing the host family has to provide them with is meals, and it's not even 3 meals a day because half the time they're not there.
Right.
But they're, their meals sometimes, and give them a bedroom. They don't have to have their own bathroom, but they have to have their own bedroom, their own space, and provide them with love and the feeling that they have a family to come home to, whether it's a family with kids or a family without kids.
And over the years, has it always worked? Have there, because there's always something that goes wrong somewhere.
Oh,
right?
of course.
Have there been issues over the years where there wasn't
with host families?
There wasn't a great match.
Oh,
with
absolutely.
The host?
Sure, absolutely.
So
it happens
when that happens,
you're dealing with personalities, and you have to remember when I'm talking to them, and I'm getting to know them from the time I've chosen them, let's say in January, February, I don't really engage with them a lot till around April. April seems to be the best time to start engaging with them on Zoom or in text messages. But I've still got 2 emissaries here. Right. So I've got to stay focused here.
So you're like the fairy godmother or the stepmother. Is that,
I have a lot of hats, but the point is it takes a while for me to get to know them, and then of course I know most of the people in our community, so that's the beauty. There are people obviously I don't know, but there are a lot that I do, so I'm trying to match them, but I don't know them well when they first arrive. So the first family is the toughest one to match. The second one's a little easier because they start to know people in the community, and the community gets to know them, and it's a little easier.
They have more than one home during the year?
Yes.
They'll go to 2 different places?
So in the early years, we would have 3 families.
Oh.
They would move, they'd get here at the end of August, they'd move like mid to late November, and then they would move again December, January, probably early March, and then they would stay till the end of June. It would be 3 families. And they go home for 2.5 weeks in February. So there's that. It was, I don't know how many years ago it started, but we found that there were a couple of things. The kids and the families felt like 3 months was, everyone's just getting used to each other, and they didn't want them to leave, or the kids didn't want to leave. That was one aspect. The other aspect is as we become a shrinking community, it's harder to find the families. So there were 2 reasons why we switched to 2 families a year, and that has worked very well. Although, sometimes we do 3 families. Sometimes, for whatever reason, we just do.
Okay. So let's now talk about, now that they're here, you kind of mastermind their schedule, and it's a busy schedule. So talk about the specific things that they do.
So they work at the religious schools in the community.
What do they do at the religious schools?
Programs, activities, whether they're related to a Jewish holiday that's coming up, or just things about Israel. They try, because that's the whole point, is they're here to be the face of Israel, the living bridge. And so people get to know what it's really like to be an 18-year-old in Israel, as opposed to necessarily what you hear on the news. like, and especially little kids aren't listening to the news. Even middle schoolers, high schoolers, maybe high schoolers are somewhat, but it's a very different picture than when you get to sit down with a young emissary who's 18 years old and they can talk about their own personal experiences. It's very different.
One of the things about our Jewish education in America, when kids studied toward their bar or bat mitzvah, they don't really learn Hebrew as a conversational language. They learn it mostly for their haftorahs, for their prayers, right, and so forth. So how does that work? Do they try to teach some Hebrew too as part of their
depending on, what they do is they put Hebrew into their activities.
Yeah.
So that they teach them, they'll do whatever the program is, and they'll say it in English, and then they'll teach them a word in Hebrew. We also have a conversational Hebrew that's open to, people in the community, and we do that different nights, or we'll do it in an afternoon somewhere, we'll do it in an evening somewhere. So they're always offering conversational Hebrew to adults as well as
So are
to
they
the kids.
on the go from 9 to 5, 9 to 8 every
Pretty
day? Much.
They're on the go from the time
So
they've hit the ground running.
They engage with the young people in the Jewish community through the Hebrew high school and other what other
and the religious schools.
And the religious schools.
And then they go to public schools.
Okay,
and
what
they do
happens
presentations
in the
public schools.
The
That we're just getting started this year.
Okay, so what happens in the public schools?
So in the public schools, because most of the kids are, if any, most of them are not Jewish. Usually we don't have a Jewish kid in the class. And so they're really teaching basics just about what Israel's like. We call it Israel 101.
Okay. Is that in the high schools, basically, or the junior high schools?
It's in middle schools and high
middle
schools.
And
Yeah, we do it in both places.
And how does it work? Do you have to?
I coordinate with a teacher, or a principal, or I have a student. I'll know a Jewish student or a non-Jewish student, and
who will introduce.
I'll say,
idea.
who's your history teacher, who's your English teacher, and then I'll make a connection.
So
online.
about how many schools have you, over the years, have you interacted with?
My best years, we've probably done 10 to 15 schools.
Okay.
In a year.
And so these are they normally like in the history class or the social
Usually
studies
history.
class?
We've had a few in the English department, but most have been in the history departments. Yeah, that seems to be, because then they do world affairs, or they do Middle East, so it's easier.
But they're not really allowed to talk their political views when they
don't talk
about.
They're not here on a political mission.
Right.
They are here on a person-to-person mission.
Yeah,
that's their role.
Yeah.
But they certainly, sometimes they get some tough questions and they answer them to the best of their ability, and they let them know, this is my answer.
Right.
This is not coming from anyone in
And
Israel.
they're
This is
doing
coming
this
from me.
during the regular school day within the regular classroom
The
setting.
teachers make room
Yeah.
for us to come in and
Yeah.
do it. The teachers are it's been a very popular program.
Yeah.
The teachers love it.
And
And there are schools I've been back to over and over and over again.
yeah, are there any things outside of the school with non-Jewish kids working with the emissaries, or is everything in the setting of the public
Mostly
school?
in schools. We did a few years back. We were able to go to a couple of churches, which was great. And I would love to do that. I'm actually looking into getting us back into some churches, whether it's with youth or, I actually met with someone recently who I had been to her church, and she said, but we don't have a youth anymore. And I said, that's okay. Let's talk to the adults.
Yeah.
So we've done it with youth and we've done it with adults, but I've lost some of the contacts. So I'm trying to make that happen again.
Yeah. So I was going to say,
And when we go to the senior facilities, that's not just for the Jewish
thing.
population. It's for the whole community. Anybody who wants to come is welcome.
All right, and that's
And the same with the Hebrew Cafe, although that is harder to
what is the Hebrew
publicize
Cafe?
to the public.
What
I
is
kinda
the
have
Hebrew
troubles with
Cafe?
that. That's where we meet in someplace, a restaurant, a cafe, whatever, and we either meet at lunch or we meet around dinner time, and everybody gets a meal or a coffee,
just
and then casual
conversation?
conversation. Well, they teach words. They teach conversational Hebrew, but in many cases, people don't have a lot of Hebrew, if any. So they start with some basics. They give some phrases, and then we've had people who said, this is a little too easy for me.
Yeah.
So when you split it off into two groups, let me know because we'll come back. So we have people who have some more Hebrew that want to brush up on their Hebrew, and so that's one of the things we're working on.
And then lots
as well.
of the groups host them for
dinners.
And
Oh yeah,
casual
it's
events.
interesting. Some people invite them to dinner, which is great. I love for that to happen. And we also have a program called Israeli Chef, where
saw
that
that.
started a few years ago, and they go into, someone says, I want to host Israeli chef. So they go into the home and they'll cook the meal, and the person who's hosting will cover the expense of the meal, and will have guests come.
I know. My friend Barbara Gordon in West Hartford's
Yeah,
gonna
she's
do
doing it.
I know. I
think you're going to that dinner, aren't you?
I don't know. She hasn't invited me
Okay,
yet.
I
I'll
don't
ask her. I'm going to see her tomorrow.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
That's
That would
gonna be
great.
fun.
She's a fabulous human person, wonderful person.
Yeah, it'll be
So,
fun.
all right. So, so give me take one day starting when they wake up. Just give me an idea of one of their days, what it would be like.
Okay, so let's start with Monday. Monday morning, they come into the office and they start going over, making their programs. We try to be a week ahead. So hopefully for the week we're in, they're all set. They're set for their programs on Monday, on Wednesday, on Sunday, they're set. So they start preparing for the week after. And that could be anything from, an activity for the religious school, something for the Jewish Community High School, could be working on a presentation, any number of things, working on the bulletin board. They have a bulletin board they have to change every few weeks, and that takes a long time. When you're putting together a bulletin board, it's a lot. There's a lot of crafting, a lot of, first you have to figure out what do we want it to look like. So all of that is encompassed in the whole day. And then at the end of the day, they will go to, let's say, Jewish Community High School, or they'll go to one of the religious schools, or, this is just how this is what the day looks like. They work in the office first, and then they take their show on the road, as I like to say.
They each have their own car? They each
have their own car.
Transportation?
Oh, yeah. We had to share. In the beginning of the year, they had to share because one of the cars was totaled last year, unfortunately. So for about the first month, they had to share a car, and that was really tricky. And thanks to, I want to give a little plug, thanks to the Wireless Zone Foundation, we were able to purchase a car with them, and also Denny Gates, who is the owner of a couple of car dealerships, and they worked together and they got us into a car.
Great, okay.
So now we have 2 cars, and they're not sharing anymore because it was really hard.
All right. Anything else about the program that you wanted to mention that we haven't yet?
I'm trying. There's so many pieces.
I know.
They're being invited everywhere. Everywhere they go to bar and bat mitzvahs, every time there's a bar and bat mitzvah, whether they're invited or not, to the after party, they are at the service. They are at the services, for Friday nights. They're at the services. Even we had services on Zoom the other night. They were there. They are everywhere.
They're active.
And they're really, really active. These 2 emissaries have so wrapped themselves. That's what I like to say. They're like a blanket. They've wrapped themselves in our community and in being a part of everything, and they love it. They're just enjoying it so much.
But so now we get to the reason that I'm talking to you only.
Right, and why they're
They
not
are
here.
not here.
No.
These 2 young people, I am not allowed to show them on this program.
Correct.
I'm not allowed to even give their last names. I won't even give their first names.
Right.
Because of what's happening in the world, because of the war in Gaza and what's happening in the Middle East.
Correct.
So talk about that. Isn't that why can't we have them here?
Well, they have, because of what's going on everywhere, and we have to keep them safe. There are just, obviously there are opinions all over the map about this, and it's just, we keep them safe.
Have there been any episodes that you know of harassment or threats against emissaries around
Not in our area.
Connecticut or the country?
I can't speak to other areas because I don't know,
But the
but not here.
But the
Not
fact is, Marcia, that there is a big concern that we have to keep these young people safe.
Correct.
Because there is a growing fear of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism,
Correct.
especially anti-Israel,
Right.
even in this community, everywhere.
Well, you have to remember, there are 250 emissaries around the world. Well, around North America. Is that right? Or is it around the world? No, 250 around the world. So the rules have to be
Uniform,
for everyone.
Yeah.
It can't be because we're a small community and we have less of an issue or no issue, whatever, that they're going to change the rules for us.
Right.
So everybody gets the same rules.
But the point is, up until now, there has always always been debates about Zionism, about Israel's right to exist. Have always been people in this country who have been anti-Israel, anti-Semites, and so forth. But
Sadly,
they still came on the show. They were still openly giving their names, talking about their lives, everything about them, which we cannot disclose today.
correct.
So something has changed. What is it has changed? Is it just the
It's
war
much
now?
more. It's much more volatile now. I mean, you look on the news and you see what's happening around the world. We can't take any chances that something horrible is going to happen
But
here. We just can't take the
right,
chance. I
but-
mean, look what happened in Melbourne.
But
It's-
this is
it's
America.
crazy.
See,
I know.
This is what we say. This
I
is
understand
America.
this is
We're
America.
supposed to be
Look at the college campuses.
the best, most tolerant, democratic country in the world. But it's not the truth when we have to worry so much about our young people.
We have to be. And we have to keep them safe. They're here for a year. We have to keep them safe. That's our job.
So,
I mean, obviously, they feel safe. They don't feel threatened. They're not afraid. And they're wonderful, wonderful young people. But the rules are the rules, and because there are things happening around the world and in our own country.
yeah.
You know, in New York City, you hear things. I
Yes,
mean, there are things happening. So basically, security just says no
Okay.
chances.
Okay.
Taking no chances.
So when we started the year, there was a wonderful article in the Jewish newspaper about these two young people with their photos, their full names, and now you've told me that even their last names cannot be disclosed, even in our own Jewish
leader.
newspaper.
Right.
So I just feel it's such a terrible commentary on the lack of understanding and on the lack of tolerance in America.
Yes, it is. It's a terrible
sad.
statement.
It's very, very sad.
Yeah, because it's a great program, and I mean, look, even when we go into schools, we have to have strict security.
Yeah, because these kids give us a view of Israel that
You can't get otherwise.
that right now you could get out of TikTok and Instagram. You can't. These people are genuine. They have real life experiences. They can articulate.
and their
them.
families are there.
Their families are there, and they can really, as you say, be a bridge, but also be a mirror onto what an Israeli kid is like.
Absolutely,
And what
it's
what
great
Israel
for our
is
young
like.
people.
I know that they usually come on with wonderful videos of life in Israel. All the fabulous technological advances that people don't realize come right from Israel.
Oh, I can share that with you. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
I know, it is
Yeah.
amazing.
So just as a side note, so Israel's their technology, they are number 2 behind Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
They're why am I finding a hard time with words? They have unbelievable innovation. So if you have a cell phone,
It's-
your chip was invented in
Right,
Israel.
right.
Your USB that you use for your computer was
Israel.
invented in Israel. Your Waze, your
Waze.
GPS Waze was invented in Israel. The list goes on. The cherry tomato was developed in Israel.
Right.
And I'm just trying to think off the top of my head.
And I think they have the percentage-wise or per person-wise, the greatest number of startups of new
correct.
tech companies.
They were known
world.
for
Yeah.
a very, and they still are known
Yeah.
up until recently.
Yeah. So these are
as
the kind of
startup
things
nation.
that these kids impart through their
Yeah.
videos and their talks, and and then there's Israeli music, and the culture, which is fun
and they share the
exciting.
food. The food is amazing.
food is
We had a teacher who we actually went to see a couple of weeks ago. I've been working with him for about 10 years now. And the first time that we met him and we went to his class and they did this Israel 101 presentation, and there was a piece about food. And he says, okay, you got me drooling here. Like, we need to have a meal. So he literally said, can we come and have a meal? And we said, sure. And they came to the Emmanuel Synagogue. I won't say where it is, but
Yeah.
they came to that synagogue. This was many, many years ago. And the 2 kids that were emissaries that year made them a shakshuka lunch. Shakshuka is tomato sauce and eggs. I know people are like, oh, it sounds horrible. It's wonderful with spices. It's so delicious. So they made them a tomato sauce and a shakshuka lunch with Israeli salad. You know, they come here and our salads, you get a bowl of lettuce
Yeah.
and maybe 1 or 2 cherry tomatoes.
Oh, their
and
salads
a
are
couple
wonderful.
of
And they're chopped, too.
a
I
couple
love
of
their
slices
chopped,
of
yeah.
cucumber. In Israel, you get a chopped salad,
I love it,
which
yeah.
has we call it Israeli salad. They laugh when I say it's Israeli salad. They're like, it's salad. I said, yeah, for you.
Yeah.
For us, it's Israeli salad because our salad isn't
yes.
like that. So they made this wonderful lunch, and it was a great experience.
Yeah.
And I would love to do that again. It was
Okay.
really great.
Well, so all I can say is let's hope next year they'll come here and talk about making the salad, talk about all their activities, talk about their lives in Israel, show us their film strips about their lives in Israel with their families and their school and their activities,
I hope
as
so.
well as what's happening here and what they're doing here. I miss that.
I know.
And
But you're going to get to meet them.
okay, we're going to talk to them in a different forum, hopefully. But so I want you to, having said that, it's kind of sad. I think it's sad. I want you to just finish up by some final comments of yours about the program and what's going on.
So I have to say that the program started, as I said, in our community in 2001. I took it over as the coordinator in January of 2008. So I've been doing it for I'm coming up January, it'll be 17 years, which I still can't believe. And it is, I think, the gem of the Federation. It is the jewel program of our Federation. We've brought so many wonderful young people, and the relationships still exist. As a matter of fact, we have an emissary who is he was one of the emissaries that we had to send home in March of 2020 because of COVID.
Oh.
If you remember, they had to go home early, and he has been in the military, as you know, for probably 4.5 years, and has moved up and whatever. He's a lovely, lovely young man, and he is going to come back and visit, and he will be speaking to our community at a date to be given at another time.
Okay.
But it's what my point is, the relationships continue with everybody. They just, you know, he reached out to me, he reached out to his host family, he reached out to some of the people he's been friends with, and he said, I want to come back. It's really wonderful, and that's just one example. We've had emissaries come back a few years after, and we had a reception for them, and we had like 200 people in the room. Like it's just the jewel of the community.
Okay, wonderful.
May it
All
continue
right.
for a long time.
And let's hope it will be out in the open for everyone to see
Hope
next
so.
time. Okay, well, thank you so much, Marcia. And we're going to say goodbye for Talkback. We'll see you next time with another interesting guest in our community. Bye. That was good.